Etienne makes a cut. Etienne barrels into the end zone. Georgia's got the lead behind the backup quarterback.
Before the season started, if you told me that Georgia would navigate through some serious ups and downs, injuries, transfer rumors, close calls, and still emerge as one of the top contenders for the national championship, I would have believed you. Not even gonna lie, because that is just how this team is built. And here we are. And I want to break down exactly how the Bulldogs got to this point, how they managed to somehow win the SEC championship game, including absolutely owning Texas this year, and what's next for them as they head into the college football playoff after a well-deserved bye. But before I begin, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. We are on the road to 40,000 subscribers, and with your support, I believe that we can get there super fast. So yeah, coming into the season, we knew the Bulldogs had the talent. Kirby Smart's a recruiting machine and has kept the roster stacked with blue chip athletes year after year. But raw talent doesn't always translate to consistent success, and early on, the Bulldogs faced more adversity than many expected. Some of the games were giving everyone heart attacks, and there were moments where the offense sputtered or the defense looked unexpectedly vulnerable against certain schemes. And a lot of chatter surrounded the quarterback position. For a while now, the Georgia faithful have pinned their hopes on Carson Beck. He came into the season hyped up as the guy who could continue the tradition of strong quarterback play in Athens. And while Beck did show some flashes of brilliance, there were injury concerns midway through the season. According to reports, he battled through some nagging issues, yet he never missed significant time. The Bulldogs also saw their fair share of roster churn. With the transfer portal now a huge factor in college football, rumors swirled about players leaving or potentially big-time transfers coming in. It's a testament to Kirby Smart's culture that Georgia not only held things together, but continued to build depth, even as players considered their futures. Georgia remained focused on the collective goal: find a way to win the SEC. They really wanted to position themselves for the playoffs and ultimately hoist another national championship trophy. The defining moment of the season, without question, came in that wild game against Georgia Tech. The announcer was kind of annoying me with how every second he was saying to get in the playoffs as Georgia snapped the ball, but it really was just insane how that game ended. 8 overtimes is something you don't often see, and really, it was the way it all happened that was crazy. The gas tank for both teams was on E, and they were just scratching and clawing back and forth at each other, but on the 8th overtime, they finally put the ball in the end zone. Kirby Smart's sideline composure and strategic adjustments were key. Throughout the season, one knock on the Bulldogs was their occasional difficulty adapting mid-game, but on this night, they showed they could outcoach and out-execute a solid opponent with everything on the line. Sure, the final scoreboard might have been close, and it was an unranked opponent, but it was still rivalry week. And in the big picture, Georgia exerted control over the tempo, the line of scrimmage, and the psychological battle. If Beck can't go, the next man up is Gunner Stockton. Stockton has been waiting for this moment, and while you never want your number called due to injury, he'll be ready. Kirby Smart dropped the small bomb in his post-game presser, revealing that if Stockton had to come out for a play in that final overtime situation, they had a plan. If something happens to Stockton, the Bulldogs reload, they don't rebuild. Carson Beck set a tone of toughness and team-first mentality by coming back into that game to hand off the ball, and whoever follows will carry that torch forward. Kirby Smart really does just continue to do it. Year after year, he recruits at an elite level and then molds that talent into a cohesive unit. And again, it's really not easy in an era of transfer portals and NIL. While other programs struggle to maintain order and focus, Kirby has built a fortress of resilience. He's calm, methodical, and unafraid to mix things up when needed. He doesn't shy away from making bold calls at all, and it almost feels like they have some of that magic the Chiefs have sometimes. Now, it wouldn't be honest if we didn't address some concerns. While the run defense showed up brilliantly, the secondary still has issues. Malachi Starks, who many have lauded for his athleticism, looked out of position multiple times in coverage. He's often late breaking down on tackles or finds himself misreading the play over the middle. Against Texas, he got caught more than once. He's an incredible athlete, and Georgia fans know his potential is sky high, but the playoffs really demand sharpness. Because Georgia won the SEC championship, they secured a favorable path in the college football playoff. While other teams battle it out in tougher matchups, Georgia will be sitting back and watching. On the Dogs half of the bracket, you're looking at teams like Notre Dame, Indiana, Boise State, who I really like, SMU, and Penn State. None of these squads are pushovers, but I definitely think they are easier than those on the top bracket. But the truth is, Georgia has the experience, talent, and coaching to handle them. Kirby Smart and the staff are using the bye week like a mini spring practice. They can break in a new quarterback if it's needed, they can review film, and really they just want to get everyone as healthy as possible. There's not a game we don't go into that we don't have a plan for Gunner if he were to have to play. I mean, when you're a backup quarterback, you've got to be ready to play, Smart said, but he functions and operates really well within our current offense. We don't think we have to change much in terms of that. He does give us the capability of doing some things different with his athleticism, so I don't know that there's a lot of change. It's probably more picking the volume correctly in terms of not having everything that we have with Carson, but having things that fit Gunner. Having over 3 weeks to prepare for the Sugar Bowl on New Year's night against either Notre Dame or Indiana will give the Bulldogs and offensive coordinator Mike Bobo more time to prepare with a new quarterback. This situation does give you time if that's what has to happen, Smart said. I mean, there is time there, but experience is so valuable, and you can't really get experience in this amount of time. I wish he'd gotten more game experience up to this point in time. There's not a lot we can do about that right now, so we're just waiting to find out more information. But anyways, in terms of the playoffs with the quarterback injury, Travis Etienne is gonna need to step up and have some of the best games of his life. The O-line is gonna have to step up, and then obviously the receiving core is gonna have to go crazy. And I know it's gonna be tough with a different guy under center potentially, but the great thing, like I said, is that they have 3 weeks to prepare. Let's take a look at what some other people have been saying about this team now that the regular season is all said and done.
The biggest difference between Georgia and Texas is the physicality. Texas couldn't run the ball, Georgia could run the ball. They controlled the line of scrimmage, and in the end, the physicality of the Dogs won over again.
We saw that in the first game well as in Austin.
No doubt about it.
And Georgia becomes the first team to beat Texas twice in a season since Texas A&M back in 1909.
No doubt, and it's the same formula over and over. 7 sacks in the first matchup, 6 sacks today. They couldn't block them up front.
Okay,
yeah.
Carson, Beck now. They've got about 22, 23, 24 days before their next game potentially here, Boog.
It doesn't sound good, Kev. In the locker room, he could not grip the football. You're right, they got about 3.5 weeks, but everything that we're hearing, it doesn't sound good.
Georgia. Ray Charles had it right. Just keep saying Georgia. 22-19, SEC champions, Georgia. 4.5 Chalai on the 1 to 5 rating scale. Some of you called this ugly. Probably the same crew that called that, 2011 LSU Alabama overtime game ugly. Different strokes for different folks, as Meemaw would say. This one was a conference title game that went to overtime. Minimum 4 Chalai, and I'd put a half on it just to make people mad. You have to cut the head off the snake is a sentence that I found myself saying about Georgia 19 times this year, 26 times this year. It's such an imperfect team. It's such a flawed team. It makes it so much more beautiful when they win.
That's really all I got for this video. Thank you all so much if you made it to this point. And if you enjoyed it and haven't yet, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe because your support truly does mean the world. And also, let me know what you would like to see next. And until then, I will see you all later.